next talk. Again, like Jai Jinaji, our Charu Uppal ji also is living abroad. She lives in Sweden. She is a media scholar based in Sweden. She has been an active participant in INDICA's activities. She is actually going to focus on the refugees, immigrants from Hindu immigrants from Pakistan. As it is well known, Ramlila in Delhi and other places is a big event. It has received global attention. People have made cultural anthropological theories about it, performance theories about it. There are acting theories about Ramlila, and Ramlila has received a very wide attention. But Charuji is going to cover the refugee cultural identity, cultural assertion, cultural articulation aspect from Ramlila. Over to you, Dr. Charu Uppalji.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope it goes well now. Before I begin, I would like to send thoughts of solidarity to the people who lost their families in Pahalgam attack. May they have courage during these difficult times. And I'm going to begin with a regular Ram Ram of Ravivar, which is Sunday. Ram Ram is not just a greeting saying just hello. It is said when you say hello, goodbye, when somebody is born, when somebody dies. It's that Ram Naam is part of our everyday life in India. And Professor Paturiji, let me say this first. I actually almost withdrew because when I saw the names of the panelists, I said, I have nothing to add except I'm a Ramlila enthusiast. I'm not an Indic knowledge scholar. But Ramlila enthusiast I am, and I'm grateful to the people who moved from Pakistan to Delhi, my ancestors, and were able to be a part of this thing called Ramlila. And we knew a lot about the Ramayana long before it came on television. And I will still say, most of us who are actually engaged with it have never read the entire Ramcharitamanas or any form of Ramayana. But we know quite a bit of the Ramayana because of the Ramlila. So I'm going to start with a, let me see, a little clip from Ramlila stage, which you can hear. It's actually a Bollywood song, which I found out later on, but it's sung by Mr. Satish Wadhwa, whom we dearly called Ram Uncle. I still call him Ram Uncle, because he played Ram for over 2 decades and got involved with the Ramlila in the late 60s. But he has a voice that's dipped in honey. And he sung this song when Bhaiya Bharat is actually follows Prabhu Ram with such dedication that, let me see, that, it's one of the most famous songs of Ramlila. Let me see if I can play it here. All right. I practiced all this before. There. I will have to change I think I will have to switch the share for that. Every time I do that, it doesn't take me there. Okay, I'll show that towards the end then. Let's just do that to save time. This is the card that was sent out this year. This year, our Ramlila celebrated 74 years of presentation to the community members, despite all the difficulties that they've gone through. But I will start with 3 anecdotes and an academic note. I presented a paper on Ramlila for Infinity Foundation's first conference. I was, very lucky to be a part of that. And for that, I had to read Professor Pollock's idea of what the Ramlila is, which he calls the tool of othering. And when I was reading it, of course, it doesn't make sense. You're angry. But I had to understand what it was doing, because before reading that, I had actually had an experience. I was in India and I was giving a lecture on Bollywood, invited by Jamia Millia. And it so happened, luckily, that year I was there at the time of the Ramlila, and I was so excited. So I invited one of the professors from Jamia Millia with a very Hindu name to participate in the Ramlila. So after he came, I asked him, I said, "How did you like it?" Because I was so excited. And he said, "Yeah, it was nice, but very Muslim and Hindu." And I was like, "What?" That idea that it was a tool of othering had never entered our minds. And we've been working on this, like I can't take the credit for it, but previous generations for 74 years, just this Ramlila alone, and many are older. But this idea that Rakshasas or Ravan clan was a representation of the Muslims was never a part of our psyche, especially if you figure out that for the last several decades, everybody in the music ensemble, people who play the background music, are Muslims. So that was quite strange, and that is what made me decide to actually write about the methodology of looking at these things and how is the Ramlila studied without the context, without the ground reality of how we feel about it when we are participating in it. Second was, it came from a very dear friend of mine who's from a southern Indian state, did not grow up in an Indian household, and asked me very honestly, very earnestly, she asked me, she says, "We are told by politicians that Prabhu Ram is a northern Indian god and not a southern Indian god." And I've lived outside of India for so long that I didn't know anything about this kind of politics. And I said, where does that come from? Because even in my very basic knowledge, we associate Rameshwaram, Ramalingam, Ramaswamy, all of those names with South India. So when did this happen? So now I'm going to tell you two anecdotes to talk about how Ramayan's simplicity has entered our lives and how its message is universal. So this first one is again from another South Indian friend who said that her father explained to her that Ramayana is actually a text that tells us how good human beings can be. Then you have the Ram Rajya, you have Dharma, you have Pranajai, Parvachananajai. And if you want to think about how evil we can be, then you have the Mahabharata. So we are given both texts. And, we have the choice to look at it and read it and understand it and follow it. The other one came to me recently from a niece who's in her 20s and is reading Ramacharitra for the first time. And she said this is what her grandmother told her, that when you think only about your rights, not of the larger context, just your rights, you create the Mahabharata. Does that remind you of something? The kind of movements that we have today. And if you think about duties and our role in the larger context, you create the Ramayana. Very simple, a very universal message. But academics will tell you that it's a tool of othering. So, as Professor Patri said, that I'm going to talk about how when the refugees came from after partition to India, how did they actually establish their identity? Simply by understanding that culture had to be communicated, people of different age groups. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of media studies theory here for us to understand what different kinds of models of communication exist. There are two kinds of models. One is a transmission model where you send information from one person to the other. Look at the news. It goes from sender to receiver. Sometimes there's an understanding that you will actually have a feedback. You will take a feedback, but you're more concerned with whether the message was received or not. And then there's a ritual model of learning, communicating, which is actually used to sustain a culture. And think about a family. So if today we have certain issues, we say, well, the parents' role and parents should do that. That's because we understand that there should be communication within the family with all members included and all members understood, or at least on that path. So, what is transmission model? By the way, that image is from Fiji, where I attended an open air Ramlila. It was a 3-hour Ramlila done all in one day. And you can see how far Prabhu Ram is loved even today, in continuation of the last two presentations that have showed us how in both space and time Ramayana has endured. So transmission model is basically that you send message across space, and you also are concerned more with its accuracy. It's like a silver bullet. You package a message and you throw it out into the audience thinking, will they get the message, what we want them to understand? And it is basically used to control and send the information so that people understand what you want to say. It's like, delivering news basically. And even though today news has become interactive, if you think about it, legacy media is still very one way, and more legacy media, because they cannot sustain themselves, you will have to sign up. In some cases, you even have to pay, and I've seen that with New York Times as well, which means that there is very little interaction from those who are reading it. And we all know how we get enraged when we see media is not covering issues in a proper way, and sometimes not even considering what the people actually, whoever experienced that event went through. It's quite a Western model, which we also had adopted, and the world has in many ways. But ritual model is what you will have in oral communication, which in some ways was considered a lesser form of communication than the transmission model. But it's not true, because there were many other ways of passing the information, or sharing the information with the next generation, people of that generation and the next generation, and continuation of ideas. They were not opposed to reform, by the way. Doesn't mean that things will not get changed. Things will get changed, and modifications will come. Modernization will alter things, but it is still a core idea that is forwarded. If you see on your right, that image is from the Ramlila card last year, and that's a painting done by an Italian devotee of Jatayu, and in the Ramayana. So, what is the purpose of ritual model of communication? It is basically to reinforce shared beliefs and values, and to maintain a society. Because if you don't have shared beliefs and values, you have no society, and that needs to be transmitted. There also is, you're participating in it. Like, you don't participate in the news. You don't even participate in creation of the news, and that is why we have such an uproar about citizen journalism. It has its positives and negatives, I will say that. But it is citizens trying to come in and say, we want to have a say as well, because we are being talked about. But ritual model of communication generally had processes in place where people would be communicating, and drama, creating community drama, was definitely one of them. Also, remember, in ritual model of communication, the interaction happens with symbolic interactionism. Like, I attended the last two presentations, both of the dance one and Professor Gina's presentation. And I understood just by looking at the image what they were talking about, even before they said anything. When they were talking about Rama's bow, I know what it is. And also, with all of these WhatsApp messages that you get these days about, Ravana was a better person than Rama, and, Sita should have chosen him and whatnot. Think about it. When we look at the bow and arrow, when we say Tir Kaman, we are associating that with Prabhu Ram and Lakshmana only. We don't associate that with Ravana, even though he uses it. So for us, the bow and arrow then becomes a symbol of justice, a righteousness, dharma, because that is how symbolic interactionism works. And if you were to ask me which one deity can be just called by one name, Bhakt, that's Hanuman. We know what his Bhakti means. We know what he signifies to the epic, the role he played, and the role he continues to play, because he's a Chiranjeevi. All of those things, we don't have to say it, they're there. And here's the thing, they don't come in one time. They come over a period of time. When we're kids, we're just happy to see drama and play and, take our parents to the Ramlila. Let's go there. But over a period of time, when the next generation comes, when you start to read the text, when you start to engage with the text, or you start to talk to people, it's a text deep with so many layers that it reveals its meaning over a period of time, over your lifetime. And so that's why we get terms like Ram Rajya or Raghukulu Riti Sada Chali Aayi, that rituals that we participate in that actually shape a cultural identity. For example, Ramlila, this one that I'm talking about, begins with an arti. Now, what does that mean? The first thing is Ganesh Stuti. There used to be a Ganesh Stuti, or sometimes there used to be a Rashtragan. I used to love that song. Hum desh ke sevak hain, ye hai desh hamara. We're the servants of this nation, and this nation is ours. And it was sung as if it was a prayer. And nobody was questioning it. We understood what it meant. Sometimes it was sung instead of Ganesh Stuti, but there was always an arti in the beginning. And we know what that means. That's evoking our gods. That is thanking our gods. That's symbolic interactionism. That is ritual model of communication. And so it is actually rooted in cultural or anthropological traditions. And so it makes meaning for both the performer and the person who's viewing it. And for some time, off and on, I've been reading this book, The Life of a Text, because of my love for the Ram Leela. I know very little about the Ramayana as a text. I've read only one abridged version by Sidra Chopalachari only a couple of years ago. But I've watched many Ram Leelas and engaged with people. So I'm, attracted to that text. And he talked about TEERTH YATRA, pilgrimage, and he mentioned four different aspects of a TEERTH YATRA. So he says there's Naam, when you are going for a TEERTH YATRA, you will say the name of the deity. And as Punjabis, we're very, very used to saying, Pori, Pori, Charda Ja, Mata Mata Karda Ja, that is Vaishno Devi. So you're saying basically at every step you say Jai Mata Di. And you say, then Jai Mata Di becomes a way of greeting each other, right? Then there's the Roop, the darshan. We go so far up at Vaishno Devi. There's a very small murti, but that's a darshan. That place is spiritually charged. That's the Roop, the form of the deity that we go to see. Otherwise, we know they exist everywhere. Leela is, you weave music and dance into the stories of the divine. That also happens at pilgrimage. You will, oftentimes, if you go to any pilgrimage, say you go to Vrindavan, you come to Ayodhya, you will find people singing the kathas or dancing to the songs that are related to that specific deity. And then, of course, the sacred space. We go to experience the sacred when we're going on a pilgrimage, on a Tirth Yatra. And when I was reading that, and because I love the Ram Leela, I realized that Ram Leela is creation of a Tirth. It creates the Tirth, and it became the Tirth for the people who came from Pakistan. They were broken. Their homes were taken away, even if some of them got houses in claims, as they all tell. All the neighborhoods were new. The neighborhood where I grew up was entirely new neighborhood, built in 1950s. My father came there as a young boy, and his best friend, who I'll talk about shortly, was very heavily involved in the Ram Leela. My father was as well, but not to the same level. They were boys of 12 or 13 years old when they got involved, because this was a part of their heritage, and they were recreating the Tirth for 10 days. That place, the pandal, becomes a dham where you chant Prabhu Ram. In fact, when the Ram Leela happens, if it's starting at 9, 10 p.m., from 6 o'clock, they start blaring the bhajans. And now it doesn't take place very close to our house, but when I grew up, it was quite close to where we grew up. So, our evening activities are all, the bhajans were playing in the background. And we didn't have the social media or these iPhones that could play our music, and many people didn't even have cassette recorders or players. But we got this, and those 10 days were delightful, especially for us kids. There are about 1,000 Ramayana Mandalis in Delhi. and about 300 of them are registered. Rajendranagar Arts Club, which I say proudly that Mr. Rajiv Malhotra was also associated with because he grew up in the same neighborhood, is registered. The Ramlila Arts Club, it had a different name before, Sri Ramlila Committee, and then with a different avatars, it's now called Rajendranagar Arts Club, which is where it takes place in Delhi. Many mandalis are still run by school-going children, and they come up every year. So there are about 1,000, but only 300 of them are registered. And I can tell you that we used to do ours because we used to think, oh, if adults can do it, we can do ours too. And you know, our Hanumanji had a bad fall because we made him slide through the clothing line, and of course we had to give that up. But we did try. So a lot of them are done by school-going children, and a central role, of course, which we forget, because you know, when something becomes a part of our culture, we don't pay attention to this, is Natya, which is core of Indian civilization. So everybody knows Natya Shastra is the fifth Veda. Uh, I learned that only a few years ago, that it's called the fifth Veda because it understood that our texts were complex. They were complicated. They may take many lifetimes to actually understand. Not to mention that most people are not literate. Many people don't like to read. And definitely you can't get to children with those difficult texts unless, you know, they're especially in a Gurukul or something. So you have the fifth Veda, which is the most democratic Veda for all the questions that people have about who was not allowed to study. The fifth Veda had no restriction. Anybody could study it. And the story itself is that, you know, I won't tell you the whole story, that this space is created. This is going to be democratic space, and nobody shall question what happens in that, on that stage, which is not the stage that is created. So Natya is not only based in our ancient stories, but it enacts the stories of Puranas and the themes of Shastras, combining Vyavahar, which is our everyday life, our behavior, with Paramarth. So we understand the divine through these stories. You know, yes, our parents can say you should do what Prabhu Ram does and whatnot, but we also then go to the Dham that is created for 10 days by these wonderful people, many of whom are Muslims, by the way, and we experience being in presence of the God. We experience going to TEERTH while experiencing the Ramlila. By the way, that's my nephew dressed for a school function. And I understood this concept of embodied knowledge in the book by Being Different by Mr. Rajiv Malhotra. And it says, spoken word carries spiritual energy and is filled with presence. So Natya wasn't just, you know, just like not any words, but we understood the power of speech, Vak, we understood that power. And it was also spiritual. You know, I'm not an Indic scholar, but we all know, we've all been told, you know, use good words. Saraswati is on your tongue. Use it, you know, wisely. And in drama, speech is enhanced. Speech and movement are enhanced. And that is an embodied understanding of that act. By the way, when I read Professor Gupta's book, that said that part of it also exists in the Greek drama before it was banned, because earlier in Greek drama, they used to believe that there was a presence of God. Gods were coming to attend the drama, which, you know, whatever changes happened in the culture, then that was dropped. And therefore, song and music was taken away, which still forms an integral part of Natya in India. And that is the reason that you have music in Bollywood as well, because it was always an integral part of Natya Shastra and drama and music. And we understood that music was a very, very convenient, concise, important way to transmit emotion and to transmit also to forward story sometimes. And I will show you later a clip from the Ramlila where you see there is a bhajan or a song which actually is telling you that, you know, Bharat is going looking for Prabhu Ram. So what this does is it allows the performer to come to come to a level of experience within him that he then transfers to the viewer. But what is important is the common knowledge, that the ritual communication, the common knowledge. I understand what he's talking about. I may not when I'm 2, 3, 4, 5, but I will start getting it when I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it keeps getting better. Also, it starts that the Ramlila is not just doesn't happen in vacuum. It the preparation of it and from preparation to presentation is about 5 months. So imagine those 5 months, people are engaged in it. Sometimes children are involved too. We would love to have been involved more, but sometimes we were a nuisance. But by the time you're a teen, you're definitely welcome to come and help. You're also participating in acting by that time. But around 3 to 4 months before the Ramlila happens, there is a Gana Bandhana ceremony where there is a havan and everybody takes a pledge. What goes in that pledge is you have to recognize you're participating in the sacred act. It doesn't mean people are not corrupt. Let's not go there. We all know people can be. But it is a ritual that tells you now you're entering a sacred space, even in your mind. There will be hard work because most of these people are not paid. They all have regular jobs. In fact, there has been a decline in intergenerational commitment because of that reason. So most of these people who are involved with it and engage in this are vegetarians, because I interviewed a few people for this presentation. But those who are meat eaters will abstain from eating meat during the time that they're engaged in it. They will try not to lie, which, even white lies. They will try to be kinder. That's also an embodied knowledge. It is for that reason that by the end of it, you will see 20, 25-year-old men are standing in, and women in their 60s, 70s, 80s are prostrating at their feet because they are the incarnation of God at that time, combining the Ram Leela's text with creating a Dham. So, this is common knowledge. I don't need to talk much about this. Abhinaya, acting, rasa, and bhava. And I want to talk briefly about rasa because I presented another paper on rasa. And the Western scholars were saying that because the rasa theory is that all of us have an ability to experience an art performance, an art, or understand an art piece, that understanding of the art, that understanding of, aha, what beauty is this? We all have that inside of us. But the Western scholars have said, oh, that's just not possible, and rasa is archaic, it doesn't, fit anymore. And that's why, in that presentation, talk about it, that it does reside in us. If you have ever learned to appreciate something, that is evoking of a rasa. One of the other things rasa can be evoked in is, what it said is, it can only be evoked when you're awake. If you're sleepy, you cannot enjoy a program. That's understandable. And I always say this, I never understood when people were going to concerts, because I saw it only after I left India, that they would take beer cans with them, because how would you enjoy music if you are drunk or inebriated or whatever, that state of mind, that Natya Shastra is very clear that if you are in an altered consciousness state, that state, you cannot enjoy a performance, and therefore cannot be completely a rasika. Bhavas that we talk about, in English it is translated as emotion, but they're actually sensations. These are changes that take place in your body. Your pupils dilate, your heart rate goes up. All of these, which I think we have enough technology, we should study. That is what is created in a good performance, especially in the Ram Leela, where the music is live, where drums and other instruments are playing while the actors are forcefully presenting their work. And all of this rasa thing happens. It's an interaction between the performer and the artist, between the artist and the audience. Okay. So what does Ramlila do? Ramlila actually simplifies the complex text. When I was interviewing people, they told me how many times the script has been altered. These so-called refugees, they came to India. The original script was written in Urdu because that's the language they could read. I learned only a few years ago from my mother that even when they were very young kids, that they didn't know how to read Hindi because Hindi had been removed from school curriculum. Very few schools had Hindi. They actually had to go to temples to read Hindi. So, because my mother was younger, so she writes Hindi better. But my grandparents and all wrote Urdu better than Hindi. In fact, they couldn't, and we would laugh at them, but they couldn't. Like, how can you not read Hindi? But the script was transferred from Urdu to Hindi. And they say that even today, some of the dialogues are maintained in Urdu because they're forceful in that language. Or let's say, even in Delhi today, we speak Urdu laced Hindi. So that retains, that is still there. Um, it also dramatizes a complex story, but also gamifies, and that's a new thing. In the last few years, between scene changes, you would have these contests and quizzes, and they would ask children to recite the Gayatri Mantra or talk about, some character in the Ramayana and how much do they know. So they've gamified that to engage the children. One of the important things when I was interviewing Vikas Kathuria, who's now associated primarily with Ramlila, he said that, we were talking about how does the Ramlila start? It starts not with Ram Janam, it starts with Shravan Kumar episode where he's taking his parents to TEERTH YATRA and accidentally King Dashrath attacks him and the son dies. When the parents are wailing in pain, they actually curse him and say, "You will die waiting for your child and missing your child like we are." And that's a story in itself. In karma, even an accidental action will bear fruit, and thus unfolds the Ramayana. So the core concept of karma, action, dharma is included. Now, here is my dear uncle, Mr. Dhinraj Kathuria. I've never called him anything else but Dhan uncle. My dad's best friend, and he was one of the pioneers. He was probably 12 or 13 when he got involved with the Ramlila. They had been in India for some time already, I think, probably a decade, but they were young boys and looking to find something to participate in. This combination of passion, wanting to create some entertainment and contribute to society. And he stayed with it all his life. In fact, Ramlila today is 74 years old because of him. And he did that till his last day. And sadly, he passed away a year and a half ago. But everybody knows, even though he took the baton from others, but I don't think there's another person who's worked as hard as Dhan Uncle to maintain the Ramlila. It began, and also what I found out was that his father in DI Khan, which is now in Pakistan, Dera Ismail Khan, used to participate in Ramlila as well. So presently, the Ramlila is continued with all the workers are volunteers. They are not paid. In 1980, when it was registered, when the Rajendra Nagar Arts Club Committee was registered, they decided they were not going to take any money, no entry ticket anymore. Most of the actors are not paid. Sometimes they have to hire actors. When I was a child, I remember they used to even get child actors. And this one, I remember my father was there at the time. He said, "Why don't we get our children involved?" And I think that was the smartest thing done. We got involved. We were so excited to be a part of it. And since then, it is the tradition that the local children are involved and they are excited. They want to be a part of it. And I have seen people scream, "Uncle, please, I'll be the best Vanar, I'll be the best monkey," or, give me the role, give me the role, and if they get a speaking role, it's just divine for them. It is an intergenerational community. This is Vikas Kathuria, Dhan Uncle's son, who is heavily engaged in it today. I have to say this. Important thing about this is that this isn't easy in the sense that you see a presentation for 10 days and you think, oh, you know, easy, fun, everything. But they've had a lot of difficulties uh, from Hindus themselves. They've had to switch parks. In fact, one year we got lucky. There was an empty area behind our house, and they did the Ramlila there. Oh, that was divine because all the actors used to pass by our house. It was literally 5 feet away from my house. We would open the back door, and there was the Ramlila Park. And it happened there only once, but they've had to switch parks because people would not allow, because they pray into the night, and they think that it affects residents' sleep. So what I found out was that there was actually a court case that they had to deal with, and it was at that time Dhan uncle alone, maybe a handful of people who joined him. He would take pictures, then he would send to the court, write a plea. What was happening? People were actually putting ornamental flowers and shrubs and trees in the parks so that it could not be allowed to be a pandal because you can't cut trees down. Finally, they got a permanent stage, but the place it still continues. The struggle to find a permanent place. When I asked Vikas, I said, "Give me the links to Lakshmana's role." Because it's so forceful, and he was vehemently said, no, all roles are forceful. Why did he say that? Because he's been involved with it since the day he was born, and he said that he's had to fill in emergencies when there was nobody to do the Lakshmana. He had to do it. He's done Dasharath, he's done Janak, he's done Kevat, except Prabhu Ram, he's done played all the major roles, so he stands up for all of them. He's modified scripts. He's brought some more Hindi into some of the script, let some Urdu remain because he thinks it works better that way. We all speak mixed language, but he's committed to it. And one of the things he said, I have to say this, it almost made me cry because I'm involved. I mean, I was involved with this as well. And he said that when they didn't allow us to park, it felt like somebody burnt my house down. मुझे ऐसा लगा मेरा घर जला दिया किसी ने. And they went back and tried to find new place. So that commitment of the local community is very important. You need same people staying in the same place. You need people who introduce this to their children. It's happening because Vikas was, he participated in it since the day he was born. So that's very, very important in how it maintains. Now, there has been a shift from analog to digital, that they have, um, you know, one of the favorite memories that I had is when they had scene changes, because between the scene change, we would have skit, we would have children dancing, we would have jokes and other things. But that has reduced now because they now don't need to change the scenes because they use slides and screens on the curtain, so they don't have to do that. It's faster and speedier. There is modification in the presentation as well, although the main elements of Natya Shastra still remain. The struggle for a secure place is unending. I have to say this, thinking about commitment. One year when they did not get any place, we were kids at that time. We were told we were going to watch only movies that year. And for about 7 to 8 days, we got to watch patriotic films and dharmic films, some Pon Ramayana, Santoshima, and whatnot, and some patriotic films on big screen. For us, at that time, TV was there. We all had television in our houses, but TV didn't have much. So that was a brilliant move to keep us engaged. Now both parents are working. Holidays have been reduced, and it affects attendance, at least for the first few days. Vikas was very encouraging in saying that a lot of young people are involved, but intergenerational commitment is rare because, now people who are getting involved are the people who have businesses, small businesses, because if you're working for an MNC, you don't have the time or freedom. So one of the things I think that is important is that for culture to continue, it should have support from both community and state. I live in Sweden, and I'm going to give you an example. When they have midsummer celebrations, they do dances every year. And one of the things that I've seen is that most of the dances are done by older couples. You will see younger couples only in touristy places where they're probably paid. The older couple are not paid, and they just, participate because they want to keep their tradition alive. However, Sweden has a brilliant tradition of keeping its traditions alive, even if it doesn't give a national holiday. For example, they do something on Santa Lucia, and it's a concert that takes place on December 13th for about a half hour at 7 in the morning. And you know how cold it is in Sweden. People come from far to attend that. And that choir is, it practices for months to give you a spellbinding performance. And I think that's very important to engage the young. We should have this as colleges, in schools, to engage people and continue this tradition. So, TV is transmission mode of communication. It's great. It's nice. We all loved it. We can watch it over and over again. But I'm sitting alone watching it with family or whatever. It's not me engaging in it. Ramlila is a ritual form of communication that allows us to participate, continue. And that is why we have so many different kinds of Ramlilas, because, it alters as the time goes. So this is something I think should be kept alive. We need state support. We need to make sure that there are holidays, and schools take holidays from someplace else, but children should have about 8 to 9 days of holidays. In this case, it should also be encouraged in schools. I personally think if you're in India, even outside, if you can, engage in one-day Ramlilas, come up with short scripts, engage your children, let them participate. When we were kids, we used to have Krishna Leela, was a big part. That is all gone because of apartment culture now. Temples should take up the baton. Temples should open their courtyards for this. It's decades of involvement, passing the torches next generation. But I'm going to see if I can share 2 clips that I want to show. First, I'm going to show you a song by Ram Uncle, Mr. Satish Wadhwa, and I want you to see the theatrical performance. This young man, this was taken about more than a decade ago, I filmed this. Young man is not a paid actor, but he, look at the emotion and listen to the song. So I'm going to share this here.
देखिए, मैंने पहले भी मंच से बताया है कि राम कथा तो होगी ही, मगर रावण कथा का क्या होगा? क्योंकि अगर रावण रावण ना होता तो राम राम कैसे होता? और रावण को जाने बिना राम का ज्ञान अधूरा होगा, क्योंकि रावण राम से और राम रावण से ही पूरा होगा। तो हम मंच के माध्यम से कई ऐसी रावण की कथाएं हैं जो हम यहाँ पे बीच में गैप्स होते हैं, उसमें फिलअप करते हैं। कहते हैं कि जानबूझकर
I want to show this about this little child who talks about his
तो नमन है रामलीला में चाइल्ड आर्टिस्ट के रूप में थे। तो अमन, आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं हमारे साथ?
मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो रामलीला में वह मतलब 74 ईयर्स से हो रही है, और मैं 2012 में पैदा हुआ था, और तब से मेरी मम्मा मुझे यहाँ पे ला रही है, और ये रामलीला बहुत ही अच्छे करते हैं। मुझे भी अवसर मिला इस साल, वरना मैं वानर सेना में आता था। इस साल मुझे लाइनें मिली, मैं थोड़ा अकलाया, बट मैंने बोलना सीखा, मैंने बोला, और जब मैंने बोला मेरी मम्मा ने मुझे सपोर्ट किया, मेरे पापा ने किया, तब मैंने बोला, और जब मैंने बोला तो इतना अच्छा बोला कि सबने तालियां बजाई। मैं यही कहना चाहता हूँ
on my YouTube channel, but the rest of the video actually talks about how different people are engaged in it. And my favorite part is when the little boy says, I was born in 2012, and I'm so excited I got to actually speak in the Ramlila today. That's it. Thank you for listening.
That was really so analytical also. It's not just a sharing of performances and the details. Every slide had a lot of analysis, a lot of argumentation, a lot of counter argumentation, presentation of the other side's positions. And it was very well structured, very well argued paper, talk, with wonderful audio-visual insertions also throughout. Thank you very much. And there is this comment here: after Paudi Paudi Chirta Ja, Jai Mata Di Kehta Ja, It is not even Murti that the Yatri sites. They are blessed by the darshan of Pindis.
Wow. Wow, I didn't see. You always learn something. Thank you.
But the person is an anonymous attendee. He did not mention his name. So that is one of the comments.